Hello and welcome. In today's video we're going to build a pedal kit. And this is going to be a sort of introductory, beginner, new to the whole thing kind of video. So if you've never soldered before and you've never built anything with wires and solder and components, then this video is for you. It's going to be a little bit longer than maybe you want to, but it's because I want to go through what I think is the important things to know. But I just want to say this now because I think that it might seem a little bit overwhelming if you've never soldered before. This is all very easy and you can take your time. Even if this video isn't 16 hours long, which I hope it won't be in the end when I'm done with it. I really think that if you want to take 16 hours to build a pedal, that's fine. It's perfectly normal to do something slowly the first time you do it. Now there are a couple of things we're going to need in order to build a pedal kit, and so we need to go through those things first.
Well, we're waiting.
So the first thing we need is a pedal kit. You'll find something that you want to build and you'll purchase that kit. Now for your first kit, I suggest you try something easy with maybe a handful of components, somewhere around 7 or 5 things to solder to a board, maybe not 120. Now I have chosen the Corruptor from Music Ding, which is right here. And the reason why I've done so is because it has a lot of different parts that you will come across when you solder a kit. So even though you might not be building the same thing as me, I'll leave a link to this kit below if you want it. I hope it's going to be really cool once I get to play it. But you don't have to build this kit. I hope I will be able to tell you how to build a kit and it be whatever you want to build. But most likely, whatever you choose, you'll come across the parts here that I have here, possibly some other parts as well, obviously, but it shouldn't stop you anyway. The second reason why I've gotten this kit is because it's actually a ring modulator, and I, even though I have a fair amount of pedals, I've never had a ring modulator. So it's going to be fun for me to have one, experiment with it, and play it. I'm getting back into the studio to record music.
Yeah, boy.
Was thinking that I need something new for that, so this is a perfect thing. Making a video that I hope you guys are going to enjoy, and building myself a new toy to play with. Now the next thing you're going to need is the instructions for the kit that you're going to use. So when you buy a kit, depending on where you buy it and depending on what kind of kit you're getting, you'll either have instructions come with the kit, or you will have to go to their page and click a link and download the instructions. You can either then download them on your phone, or you can print them out like I just did. I like to print them out because that gets me away from the computer and it allows me to have them in front of me all the time without having to turn on a screen or something like that. The more time I get away from a screen, the better, I feel like, but yeah, that's why I print them out. There are basically 3 kinds of kits that I've come across, and what I mean is how the instructions work. When we open up our kit, which we will do right now here, you have a bag with all the components in it. Sometimes you can buy just the board itself and you don't have to buy all the parts, but I suggest that for your first time you buy a kit with everything in it, because then you don't have to worry. If you look closely at the board, you will see that there are a bunch of symbols for where the parts are going to go, and in them there are numbers. Now, on some pedals it will say something like R12K, and that means that you're supposed to put a resistor that has the value of 12K there. On some kits, like the one I have here, I think this is the most common one, it will just say something like C4 or R4. I picked 4 twice by some weird random reason. And the difference is that if it says the value, then you'll have to go into your bag of parts and you'll try to find it. And sometimes they will have a little bit of tape on them, which we will see closely soon, and it will say the number. Or you'll get a little card with your kit that shows you how to read the lines on, for example, a resistor. And then you'll have to sit there with those lines and read it. You could obviously skip that and just measure it with a multimeter, which we will talk about in a little bit. There is a preference, obviously, in this, but I think that for your first kit, it's better if you just have the number written on them, like C4, C9, R12, whatever like that. And then on the kit itself, the parts are labeled. I think that's the easiest way to start out, because then you don't actually have to sit there with a multimeter and measure everything and check it. but you can definitely do that. So don't worry if you buy a kit that is the other way around. But that's the way I think you should do it, and that's how we're going to do it with this kit now. But if it is the other way around, you can still follow along. You just have to do that thing a little bit different, the way I just told you. You're going to need a couple of things to do this. We've already spoken about the fact that you need a kit, but that's, the physical thing you're building. You're going to need a soldering iron. I have one here. If you're just starting out, I would suggest not getting too boggled down in the whole, like, what soldering iron you should have and what you shouldn't have. This is something that I think you can listen to people online telling you what you should have. I, for example, think that having a soldering station instead of a soldering iron is a good thing, but I also solder a lot more than maybe someone who's just trying this out for the first time. So if you can find a cheap local hardware store soldering iron for $15 or something like that, depending on where you live, I think that will do good. It will do enough for this. You're going to need a way to clean your tip. Now, there are a couple of different ways. You can get one of these little steel wool-like material, but it's not steel wool, cleaning station, soldering iron cleaning station. You could also get a little sponge that you dip in water. They look like this. You soak them in water, and then you can just clean your tip with that. You can also get this soldering iron clip cleaner, which you will see me use sometimes. It looks like this. It's all grey and gross looking, but it actually works. I bought it because I saw so many videos on YouTube Shorts showing it off and being like, whoa, it's amazing how good it is. And I was like, I don't think that's going to be good, but it is actually good. Next thing you're going to need is solder. This is a 1mm thick wire. It has flux in it, so it flows and solders a little bit better. So look for that when you get a solder. When you get a solder, that maybe you should get a solder with a flux already in it. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of struggle soldering something in place, and it's better. You don't always need to use flux, but it is a good thing to have some flux. And yes, it's because sometimes it is a little bit harder to get something to stick, and then you just sort of put on a little bit of flux and you help that thing out. Because one of the hardest part in soldering, or I would say the hard part in soldering maybe even, is that you're working with heat. And you might actually burn something up. If you have a small component that is heat sensitive and you heat it up too much, you risk the risk of risking it, and it will be dead, burnt, not functioning anymore. And yes, that was supposed to be some sort of joke. I'll pause here for a second so you can applaud and laugh. Good? Good. You're gonna need wire cutters. Small, tiny little wire cutters like these, you see? Flat on one side, so that you can get in close to the board and cut things. It's a special tool for a special job, and you'll not use it for anything else, but you shouldn't use it for anything else either. But it's fine. They're not that expensive. You don't have to buy something fancy. You don't have to have like tungsten steel cutters or something crazy. It's, the legs of the transistors are very easy to cut. But we want to cut them as close as we can to the board, because if you have a little bit of wire flobbing around or something, it might touch something it shouldn't touch, and then you might have issues. All right? Good. So let's see what you get in the kit. Now, obviously, it will all depend on what kit you're getting, but I want to go through some parts. So, first off, we have this bag. Here we have the circuit board, and here we can see all those things that I was talking about. You have the little plates where we're going to solder things, and we have the little number and shape. You can tell by the shape what part is going to go in. Like, for example, right here, we have the little square ones that look like maybe a resistor could sit there. But then if we go down a little bit, you have basically the same shape, but it has a line on it, and that's where a diode is going to go. I hope you can see it. I'll try to zoom in. And then if we look around, we have these ones, but they look a little bit different in shape. They have the same general shape, but those are a little going in, and rounded. Those are smaller, but the corners are sharper, and they have the extra line. And then over here you have the elongated ones that are just basic, and it also says a number in them. They're C4, but here we have round ones where it says C as well, and those rounded ones are for electrolytic capacitors. You can also see that they have a little mark that shows a plus sign, which is the positive side, because electrolytic capacitors, they are polarized. They have one side that has to go to ground and one side that has to go to plus, which the other capacitors don't have. Then we have these long with a lot of legs and a little notch on one end. It's like a big square you can see here. There's a little notch there, and that's where an IC is going to go. So yeah, a bunch of parts are going to go in here. We'll take a look at that later. Next thing we get in this first bag is we also get a little PCB for your switch, which is neat, and you can use that. If your kit doesn't come with that, then look in your instructions and you'll see how to wire it up anyway. And if it doesn't, I do have a true bypass switch standalone video that you can watch on how to wire one up, and it should help you. So let's take a look at the rest of the things that are in this bag real quick. So here is the switch. It looks like this, and it's basically 3 switches. Every row here is its own switch. You can see the legs have like a little hole in them for the wire, and that row is one switch, that is one, and that is one, and then you switch all of them by pressing one. So it's this outer is connected to the middle, then you switch, and it's this outer that is connected to the middle instead. Then we have our jacks. This is where we plug in our wires from our guitar cables, I mean. And the middle here, this whole thing here, connects to the sleeve right here, and that is the ground. And then you have this tip connector here that gets connected when this gets pushed in. You can see how it goes up against it, and that's the lead signal. So you can see here how the middle here, that's like there, that is the ground, and this is the lead. And that's just a simple connection, nothing strange about that. We get a DC jack so that we can plug in power. And the same thing here, you have the first leg down here, and that is our positive. You have our middle one here, which is for the battery. And then we have our ground, which is this bigger leg right there. And it connects right there with the cable from your power source. And then we have the pots. My first one here is 100K. The next one is a 50K. And the last one is a 25K. Now, the way a pot works is that it's a wiper inside here, and you're changing the resistance of the value between these two legs to the value of these two legs. So this is a 25K pot, and if I put it to the middle, and not the middle of the pot, but the middle of its value, it's going to be 12.5K between these two legs and 12.5K between these two legs. And if I move this so that I have 10K here, I'll have the 15K on the opposite side. Or if I have 0 between these two legs, I'll have the 25K right there. They also come with these little hats because they might be touching something. You can see that there is a little notch there. You can put these on. This is not one of those things that you need to do or that you need to have. So if you have a kit that you've bought and they don't come with these, you don't need to put them on. You don't need to use them. I'm putting them on right now to show you that they fit and that they work. It can be really good to have. I mean, it depends on what you're building, and it also depends on how much space you have to, make sure that nothing is touching something in there. Because sometimes you'll have a nest of wires going in all directions, and, you haven't put shrink tube on everything because it's kind of a hassle to do so. And you put everything together inside of a box, and then you... Here we have 4 little stickers, and these are feet so that your pedal doesn't scratch up your floor or something. Here we have a bag of pre-cut wires. This is one of those things that not all kits come with. Sometimes you're going to have to buy your own wires separately. So that's something to look out for. That's one of the reasons why I like Music Ding so much. I think they're #1 in pedal kits in the EU. So if you are also in the EU, just like me, I think that's, the go-to place. But if you're, for example, in America, then you'll have to look in the comments below for someone nice that will tell you the best place to get pedal kits. But I know, for example, that Stu Mac has a couple of pedal kits, but if they're good or not, I can't really tell you. But anyway, here we have a bag, and let's just take a quick look and see what's in this bag right here. So here we have the 2 parts, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's more than 2 parts, but it's the holder for the LED. So you'll take this thing here, and you'll put your LED through here, like so, and then you can push this LED into this. Wait, I put it in upside down. I'm not looking at what I'm doing. See, even I make a mistake, so don't worry if you do it, but you put it in like that, and then you can press fit it in this holder. Now, I'm not going to press this in yet because I need an enclosure. That's that. Here we have 2 ICs, and we have these holders. But these are the things we're going to solder in place. I think that's really nice because then you don't have to worry about overheating the ICs. It's something that is very easy to do. I can't even begin to tell you how many of these I've destroyed over the years because I've just been careless. So having these holders are really good. You find where they're going to go on the board. I think they're the same size on both of these. Take that little notch, you take that little notch. You just put that in like that, and then you just put a little bit of solder on all of these connections. And then when you're done, you can take out these ICs and you can press them in there. We'll look at all of that later. I know I just went through it, but there's basically nothing more than that to it. But yeah, we'll go through it in more detail. Here we have our first bag, and here you'll see that the parts are pretty similar, but you can definitely tell them apart. So this is a resistor. This is what they look like. And in kits for music ding, they will look like this. They will come with a little bit of tape, and it will have a number written on them. Here it says 1M, which stands for 1 meg, which is a value, basically. And then we'll just look in on our instructions and see where they go. Well, you will see soon. Here we have 2 resistors, and their value is 100K. It's written on them. Here we have a diode. You can tell it's a diode because it is one solid color, and then there is one side that has a line or a marking that makes it a different color. You'll see the same thing on these right here. Now, these can be a little bit harder to put in because here we have 4 that are the same. You know that they are the same because they're all taped together like this. So they all are the same kind of diode. So we don't have to check them. But for example, if we had a bunch of different diodes that were all just taped like this, where there's one, then you would have to actually go and look on it and read out the part because it's written on it what it is. And that can be a little bit hard if you have, issues seeing small text. So for you guys, I recommend getting a magnifying glass. I don't have a magnifying glass because I don't have that issue myself, but there is no shame in it. So if you need it, just get yourself a magnifying glass, or you could get what I have used sometimes when I'm looking at really, really small things, and that is a microscope lens. As some of you will know, I'm a little bit of a camera nerd for vintage lenses, so I have some old microscope lenses that I use for experiments sometimes. But anyway, that's a completely different topic. Then in this kit, we also have 2 little trim pots. And sometimes you can switch these out for bigger pots. So I'm going to show you a nifty little thing that I do with these when I go to solder them in place. No, but basically this is just the same thing as one of these. The only thing is it's smaller, and you turn it with a screwdriver. Take a tiny little screwdriver, you put it into this little plus here, and you turn it. And it's basically so that you can set something to a value, and you can leave it there without having issues of it possibly moving on its own. If you have a pedal with one of these on, they might move, something might bump into them or something. But this will be on the inside of the pedal, hidden away. And they're used for different things, but mostly they're used for when it's a value that either has to be set by taste, so that you decide no, but this is where I want this pedal to exist. Or they are because it's kind of hard to fine tune an exact value of a resistor to put there. So it's easier to just say, put this trim pot here and turn it to exactly this value. But you'll have to look in your instructions to see what you're going to do. But I already know that these are the input and the gate controls. So I know that if I want to mod this, I could switch those out for bigger pots. But that's not a topic for this video, but it is, however, something that I think I might actually be doing later. Anyway, here is our next bag. And in this we will have our capacitors. And this might scare some people, but I'm going to explain it. So this is an electrolytic capacitor. And on it we have a line, and depending on what they look like, they're either like blue and have a white line or black and have a white line. Sometimes they will be green with a golden line. The colors don't really matter. It's different brands that make them, and there are different qualities to them. But for the sake of this video, the line, whichever color it is, will always be the negative one. So you have plus leg here and a ground leg here, and it can be a little bit confusing if your board, for example, like this one, makes a point of pointing out to you. That was a mouthful. Which side is the positive? But then you look at the part, and the part makes a point to point out to you which is the negative, which means that when we go to put this in, we have to make sure that the plus sign there is on the part that is not marked on the part. I hope that made sense. But basically, this is the plus line, that is the plus sign. It goes together like that. And then we have our other capacitors. They're taped together the same way as the resistors, so you have same values here, and the ones that are, separate ones are on here. And they have a code up here which tells you what it is. They just say basically their value on. So this is a 1 NJ100. That should be a 100 nanofarad right there. So no, that's not. It's a 100 microfarad is what I was meant to say. Anyway, it's a little bit annoying. I think you'll be able to do it. Don't worry about it. It just takes a little bit of extra time to go through everything. Let me just put all of these things back and we'll go on to the next thing. Alright, so the next thing is you're going to need a box to put all of this into. And obviously you have to make sure that the electronics fits, but you don't have to overthink it much more than that. You can have fun. If you've seen other videos that I've made, then you'll know that I like to have fun with my boxes. So here's a standard sort of box. Yeah, this is what you'll get, and you'll see this one has been powder coated, which is very nice. I like that. It's a durable, nice finish that you can have. It's a little bit more expensive, so if you want to, you can get a bare one, like this one. This one is obviously too small. As you can see, this would not fit in here. But you can get a bare one, and then you can either paint it yourself or, you know, whatever you think or like. You can get a really big one. I mean, the only thing that matters is that it fits. So if you see the circuit here, yeah, it's kind of fit. If you think that's fun, do it, but also keep in mind that it's a little bit big, so it might be a little bit clunky. But for example, you could put 2 pedal kits into 1 pedal, and maybe then you need a bigger box, or most likely then you need a bigger box. And then you could also rehouse, you know, you can take some old pedal that you have that is broken, and you could take the enclosure, you can reuse it. Maybe one day I'll put something into this one, for example. We'll see. Maybe that day is today. I don't think so. Or maybe I will, because it has 3 holes here. It looks like a little face, you know, mouth and eyes and a mouth. And then you can also do something like this. For example, this is a channel switch pedal for a amp, a Marshall. You can maybe read there. It's a very nice, fun box to use. Next, you're going to need a drill. Here is my drill, because you need to drill holes into the enclosure. I like to use this to measure out where I'm going to drill my holes. And here is a punch. I hold this up to something. Here's a scrap piece of wood, and I press it into the wood, or the pedal enclosure. This is for metal. It will pop like that, and then you have an indentation. And then you can take your step bit. They look like this. This is an old one. I'm just using it for this video. It has a number written on it. For example, here it says 8, and these are most likely 7, but let's say they're 8. I'll drill with this until I get to 8, and the hole is that big. Then I can put this through the hole. Very easy. Simple. But yeah, that's how we do that. I think that's everything. So let's jump into start soldering this. Okay, so we have our board here, and we're going to start putting parts into it to solder in place. But before we do that, we need to talk about what we are looking for to know that we have done a good job when we solder something into place. It's very annoying to have built an entire pedal, doesn't work, or it's very noisy, and then you try to figure out what it is. And the answer is your soldering joints are cold. What that means is that they are not soldered correctly, and the connection isn't really happening, and so the signal isn't really passing through. So if you look at something, like for example, how this one looks, this is not how solder is supposed to look. But if you look at, for example, this battery, how shiny it is, you know, in the parts where it is shiny, that's how we want our solder to look. So when you put on solder onto this and you melt the part and the solder together so that it fits and works, you're looking for that chrome shiny look. Let's imagine this board from the side like this with a part sticking out. I'm going to draw a line here and show you what I mean. So here we have, let's see so I can do this without the glare. Here we have our board, like a line like this. And then here we have the 2 legs sticking out through the board. So imagine that this is, you know, going through. And up here we have the little part sticking out. Obviously you should put them as far down as possible and not sticking up like this. But this is just, you know, so that you understand what it is I'm trying to show you. You'll get better pictures of the actual thing in a second or minute or something. No, depending on how long it takes me to explain this. If your soldering becomes like a blob that lies on top like this, it's not really connected, so don't do that. If your solder becomes like a little cone like this and it looks like it's like melting together and becoming a seamless transition between the solder pad and the part up like this, so it's like a little cone just in the bottom, you know, here's the leg, soldered like that, that's good. That's what we're looking for. Good. You'll see it once I start soldering, so that you're not confused. I just wanted to draw it out because it is gonna be hard to see what I'm doing. That's just, you know, a part of this, that I'm filming this, but you know, my hands are gonna be in the way. But now I'm gonna start soldering these into place. And the first thing you solder into place are the smallest components. So you go smallest and up to the biggest. To me, the smallest part, as far as I can tell, are the resistors. So they're in this bag right here. And what I need to do is just organize this a little bit and put everything into a neat pile. So all my diodes over here and all my resistors over here, and then my two little trim pots. I'll put them over here. I think I'm going to solder all of this in place, even though I think technically maybe, for example, these ICs might be smaller than parts than the trim pots. You could argue that. I don't know. You can fight with me in the comments below if you feel like it. But I think I'm going to do them third, so the resistors, the diodes, and then the trim pots, just because then I'm done with this bag, and it's kind of nice to be done with a bag. Yeah, so let's start with the resistors now. And I like to go with most amount I have first, and then I'll take something that is a little bit less. So I'm going to put these 4 in place first, and then these 2, and then these 2, and then I'll take all these once on their own. We'll have to keep track on this board, because we have the LED, we have CLR here, we have DC. We'll take a look at that when we get to that. So we have our instructions right here, and we just have to find the page with the numbers. So right here on this page of our instructions, you can see here that R1, R2, R3, R4 are all 1 meg. So I'll put these to the side. These are all 1 meg. It's written right there. So we take our little handy dandy snippers right here, and we cut some of these off. I like to cut them pretty long like this, but I don't like messing with this tape and trying to get that off, because it's just too annoying to have flopping around and bending the legs and messing things up. It's easiest to put these into place when they are still somewhat straight. Then we take our part, we hold it up against our fingers like this, and we just bend it like that. And we do the same thing on the opposite side. Just hold the part like this and bend it like so. Do that to all 4 of these. There are little jigs and things like that you can get as well to help you do that, but I feel like this is, you know, you can see it's pretty. I feel like that's straight enough. Try to make it look nice if you can. Okay, so let's see. 1 meg, it was R1, and then we just look here. Can we find R1, R1, R1? There we have R1, right there. And we push it through on the side that has the little symbol and text on it, through to the other side. It should like sort of snap into place. And on the other side, where there is no text, we can bridge the legs out a little bit so that the part holds itself in place. You can see here. And then we take the next one, and the next one is going into R2, which is right there. It snaps a little bit into place if you've bent the leg correctly. And then next one is R3, which is just underneath here. And R4 as well. Then you can have something like a bit of foam. If you want to, you can press this down onto the foam, and that will hold the pieces snugly in place. Then we take our solder and our soldering iron. We put a little bit of solder on our tip, clean it off, and put a little bit of new solder. And we press on the board. We come up to the part. We hold our soldering iron to the part, and we feed solder in to place, and it should melt together. Sometimes you have to go back and melt it again, just so that it looks nice. So it should just flow into place. You put the solder to the part, or you put the iron to the part as well, and then you just sort of let it flow together. And if it doesn't look right, you come back and you just give it a little bit extra attention. And you try to do it as quickly as you can, because you don't want to heat anything up for too long. But you also try to be careful and take your time. It's like that Nirvana thing, you know? Take your time and hurry up. And you can angle the piece differently, and you can move it around, and all that. And then you inspect the soldering. It looks a little bit sloppy right there. But I think I'm going to just cut these legs off. This one got a little bit too much solder up on it. But that's okay. I'll just cut these as close as I can. And then I'm just going to reheat this solder a tiny bit, just to Because sometimes it's just a little bit clumsy to get in there with the soldering iron and the legs being so long that it's better to just get it in place so that it stays put, and then you cut the legs. And I hope you can see how there are like they're clear like chrome, so we don't have any crazy soldering, and they are all tiny little pyramids like I drew out before. So yeah, next one is this one, and it has a value of 100k, and the 100k are R6 and R7. So I'll be back once I've sorted all these in place, because I feel like seeing me sort of these 4 in place was enough.
1 hour later.
Okay, so all of them are in place except for this one. And if I look in my instructions, and I just want to show you this because this is something that you will see, and so it's a good thing that it was in this kit, because if you don't know, you don't know, you know? And so here we have an example of something. So the CLR, and it has a little mark there, which tells you that you have to go here and read that this is the current limiting resistor for the LED, and it says 4.7k, which is the one that is here, which means that we have to take this one, we have to cut these off, and we have to use this board here to solder this in place. And if you are doing something like this, but you've decided to not use this, then you're going to have to put that into the circuit, you know, on the switch instead of on the board here. And if you look at my other videos, they will show you how I do that. It's not particularly hard, it's just a question of which leg you're using for the LED. Here you can see, neatly sorted in place, very quickly, not any fuss, just, yeah, there it is. Alright, so here we have it now, and it's all looking good. This one is sorted in place as well, and now we're going to go over to the diodes, which, I mean, I suppose you could argue that these are actually smaller and I should have gone with the first, but never mind. So we're going to start with these 4, and those are 1N4148. And they need to go into D1, D2, D3, and D4. So I'll snip these legs here close to the tape, trying to keep them as straight as I can so that they are not crooked and bent and looking weird. And just so you know, like I do this way. I take them and I just kind of bent the leg. But you can do something like take a little bit of a screwdriver or something. When I put these in, you can see that if I bend the leg exactly by the part, like I did with the resistors, it's not going to really work. So I need to give myself like a mil on each side before I bend them. You know, like so. Straighten them up. And I put them through the hole. Now, this is very important. On this part, and I hope you can see it, this is an orange little thing, and on one side it has a black line. You have to be very careful and make sure that on the board there is a line where it's going in, and that those two are matching up so that the line are on both the part and on the board on the same side. And there it goes, it's in. I hope you can see how the line on the part and the line on the board are meeting up. And then I take the next one, I pinch it with my nails a mil away from the part on each side, and I bent the legs, I twist them a little bit so that they are going in the right direction, and I make sure to align the lines and pop it into place. And then I do the same for the other 2 parts so that all 4 of them are in the same place. And here is the last one getting in there. Now before I start soldering them, I'm just going to double check. So I look at the first one and I can see the line on the board and I can see the line on the part. I look at the other one, the line on the board, the line on the part. I go down here, the line on the board, the line on the part, the line on the board, the line on the part. Good. They're all facing the right direction. They are all ready to be soldered in place. So I'll just hold this down here, press it into this foam with one hand, and I'll try to get a little bit of solder going. I hope you can see that I'm doing this fairly quickly. And obviously this is something that comes with it. I've done this a couple of times. If you're doing this for your first time, you might not do it as quickly as I am, and don't worry about it. Obviously, if you're using a soldering station, you can control the heat and you can make it as hot as you want and as cool, or whatever you want to call it, as you want as well. And you should technically, if you're doing this the right way, look up the parts and see what sort of heat they can take, and then just set your soldering station to that so that you know that you can't burn the part. But you will also, once you've done this a couple of times, get a feel for it. And now I'm just going to double check again, because it's so annoying when you're getting frustrated and you're going through your entire pedal and you just can't figure out what is wrong. So I'm just going to check this again. The lines on all the parts are meeting up correctly. And they are. So now we can move on to the last one, that is the D5. This is a 1N4001. So I'll cut these off and I'll take a look at the board and see if I can find D5, which is where it's supposed to go. Now this is the one that is controlling the power, and it's right there on the board. So I try to hold it up and see, okay, it's like a mil off from the part. I'll just bend these legs a little bit and see if I can, you could do some sort of gauge thing, you know, hold a piece of something like a ruler or something up next to it to see if you can bend it. But then we put this through here, and I think this is even better for you to see. Like if I put this through here, I hope you can see the part and the board, and how I make sure that the line on the part, which this is black with a silver line, matches up the line that has been drawn out on the part. So I put this through, bend the legs a little bit so that they go in the right direction, you know, sticking up like this. And then I'm just going to press this down into the foam with a little bit of solder. So melt that into place. Very good. And then we snip those legs. And now we can move on to the next part, which is going to be these two trim pots. Now, I might come back to this kit. Now, this all depends on your, kit and what you want to do with it. So don't think that just because you have a trim pot in your kit that you can just, remove it and switch it out for a pot, because sometimes they're controlling like something that has to do with the power or something, and if you don't put it to exactly the right amount, then it might, destroy the pedal or something. Sometimes you even should put like a little dab of super glue or hot glue or whatever on the pot afterward to lock it in place. And there are kits out there where they will even tell you, like, take a multimeter and check the pot and make sure, that things work the way they are. Set them to this value and then lock it up like that, So, on these pots, we need to figure out which one is the 100K and which one is the 200K. And it's actually pretty easy because it says so on them. So you can see here it says 204, and there it says 104, and this is the 200, and this is the 100 then. So the input is the 200, so input right there. And you can press it down just like this, so that it is super close, and then you can sort it in place. Or if you feel like maybe I want to make sure that I'm able to get this out, you can take something, like for example, here I'm going to use a nut from a guitar. You can use that as a spacer and press that into place, and with a little bit of solder and lock, you can solder that into place to make sure that you can actually get this out. So I'll just put a little bit of solder on my chip and move it around so that it melts into the part, so that they are sort of held in place. And then I'll just feed the other two legs a little bit of solder and go back and retouch on the first one to make sure it's all good. And now, if I remove this, as you can see, it's sort of sticking up. This is not how it's supposed to be. So this pot, I'll show you, it will go in here, the three legs, that's the way it goes in. And it should be tight to the board like this. And then you should solder it in place and cut these legs off. This is just because I think that I'm gonna come back to this later at some point. Maybe you guys want to see that video, I don't know. And just switch these out for pots and have some fun, and just we'll just see what happens, basically. But this won't affect anything. I'm not doing something that is bad or anything. It's not gonna make or break anything. The important part here is to make sure that when you do solder these connections in place, that you get a solid, nice connection. And I'm still getting that. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of issue with soldering that in place. So pick up a little bit of flux and just dab a little bit on here. There are two different kinds of flux that you can use. One that is like a paste, like this thing here that I'm using, and a more liquid one. That's what I use. I can't tell you that it's better or worse than the other one, but it's a preference, and you probably should try both if you are curious, but there isn't like a one is better than the other or anything. It's just a question of preference. Alright, so I managed to get this to work. What I had to do was I had to come in with a knife and sort of scrape away around it. I don't actually know why that is, but I assume that something happened to the board and some sort of film got over it, and it made it impossible to solder to it, even with flux. But since I had to do it off camera because I had to, I got kind of confused about it, I'm just going to show you what I did. I take a little blade like this, and I come in, and I carefully just scuff up the area. Just tiny little scuffing like this. Just go around. Be careful to not touch anything else than just that part right there, and then solder in place. So the pot there is in place. It looks a little messy, but that's all right now. I think it's gonna work. I hope it's gonna work. I hope I haven't done something that will make this pedal not work. But if it doesn't work, we know why, and then then we won't have a demo of the pedal in this video. But I'll have to contact them and tell them what happened, and hopefully they will send out a new board for me. So there we have it. They look a little woggly, fugly, muggly, bugly right there, but we're most likely going to replace them, because I think like having an input level trim pot thing that we can do something with. If you read the instructions, it says that input trim pot is set the input sensitivity from very noisy when just touched to strings, more gated and controlled adjust to taste and to suit your guitar output. Cool. Now we're moving on to the next bag with little capacitors, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, so let's start with the electrolytic capacitors. They are a little bit bigger, but I feel like that's a good place to start, because we only have 3 of them, and we can tell that they're going into these circles here. Like I said before, you have the circle and you have a little plus sign on them, so you can see where they're going. And we'll start off with this one, and this is a 100 microfarad. Yes, that's what it is. And 100 microfarads, if I look at the paper that I have right here, you can see all the values right there. And that one, the 100, no, stay up. The 100 microfarad goes to 9. C9 right there. I hope you can see it. There's C9. There's the plus sign. So this one goes in there. And the minus, which is the lined side, or whatever you want to call it, goes on the opposite side, because the opposite of plus is minus. And we put this in like so. We press it down into the foam a little bit. And we'll just see if we can maybe tag it down, hold it in place, and press the soldering iron into the part to heat it up, and press the solder into the part, and they will heat up the part and flow together and make a connection. Something like that. A little bit of solder. Here I have to make sure they are not touching, because they're pretty close on the board. I kind of don't like it. I feel like a lot of boards have this issue where the legs are just a little bit too close, and you don't know who is going to solder this in place, so I just feel like they could always have just a little bit more. A lot of kit has this issue. If you have done a bunch of kits, then this will not be an issue for you, obviously, because you're used to what you're doing, but that could be an issue. And if you're worried and you want to try it to see if there is an issue, then you take your multimeter and you move it over to this symbol here, which is like a little arrow with a line thing. It's also good if it have a sound symbol so that you can hear it. If these touch, you get a sound, and if you touch both these soldering points, you get a sound, then they are connected, and that's not good, because it's, plus going to ground would be bad. So I don't get a sound, so we're good. And that's something you have to do if you're worried. I can visually see here that they aren't touching, so I only did that right now to show you. But if you're having issues or you're worried, check it with a multimeter. If you don't have a multimeter, you need to get a multimeter. Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna get my papers back. They don't, for some reason, want to stay put. This is a 2.2 nanofarad, and if I look at the paper, the 2.2 is C5, which is right there, and it is a little bit hard, but there's the plus sign. So I'll stick it through.
Yeah, boy.
The longer leg is the plus. The lined leg that is shorter is the round or minus. And then we just put a solder on a hip, and we just connect them, and we move it around. All right, so let's start putting these in. these are all going to go on a line right here. So we have to be a little bit fiddly about it. And the first one that we need is a 4.7 nanofarad. I'll double check. Yes. C4 is a 4.7 nanofarads, and I can see it right here. I doubt that you'll be able to tell the code here. It just says the value. It seems like it's some weird code or something, but it just says it's 4N7, then J100, and it's just, you know, the J is just tolerance is 5%. If you're curious about this sort of things and it doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. You don't have to think really about, you know, like tolerance and things like that when you're building pedal kits, or at least I haven't encountered that. You plug in your 9-volt power adapter the way you're supposed to, and you go from there. Basically, you know, if you plug in more power than that, it's gonna fry the circuit anyway. And I think the IC are gonna be the first one to go. So start off with a little bit of solder, just trying to get this to stick down. See, trying to get it nicely and smoothly in there, and cut off the excess on the back to have this neat little thing. And it's the same thing here, you know, like here it says 22J, you know, and we just look at that 22 and we can see that that's the 220 nanofarads, and if we look at the papers, that's 7 and it's also 8. I'm just gonna solder these. As you can see, I'm lifting the C8, I think it is. Yeah, C8 up a little bit. And that is because in these instructions, they point out when you solder C8 in place that if you want to, you can replace it with a switch, and that's a cool mod you can do. So I'm thinking maybe at some point, if you guys are up for it, and if I'm up for it, and if everyone thinks it's fun, we could do a mod video where we're changing these pots out and we're changing that value there as well. But yeah, just wanted to show that real quick. I'm gonna go and solder in the next components. These 1J63s, which would be the 100 nanofarads, right? Yes. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll see you real soon. Let's see if we can find them on the board.
10,000 years later.
So here we have it now. It's all good. It looks a little wonky, I know, because that one is lifted up a little bit, but we can straighten all the other ones out a little bit, maybe. It is good to have a little bit of space so that things aren't touching, because if for some reason something would heat up, and it might heat up something else. Unlikely to happen, but for some weird reason things happen that you don't think will happen, and then that's happened. And that's, you know, always, I don't know. Whenever I say I never think this is going to happen, that's what happens. Let's move on. We have to solder these in place. Now, these are holders. One has more legs than the other. So if you look at the board, you see this little indentation here. And that is because these ICs, they need to go in a certain way. They can't just be plopped in willy-nilly however you want it. You have to actually make sure they go in the right way. So, to make things easier for yourself, your kits usually come with these. That means that you can upgrade them and change out the chips, because sometimes you can do that, you know. Sometimes there are different versions of the same chip, and you can fine-tune by using different chips. Not always, but anyway. The only thing that matters is that these fits. It doesn't matter which one goes where, but since these are two different sizes, this one will only fit here, and this one will only fit there. Keep close attention to these, because on one side they're just flat, on the other side they will have a little indentation in the middle, just like this one has. And make sure they go in the right way, so that the indentation marked on the board and the indentation in the part are matching up. Then press it onto the back and flatten the legs a little bit, like this, so that they are holding themselves in place. I know that there probably is one or two of you out there who's going to say, no, don't do that, just solder it in place. But honestly, if you're just careful and you don't bend the legs like crazy amount, just sort of flatten them down, you can solder them in place, and it can hold its own self in place. Make sure that line is in the right place, and I'll do that same here. I'll put this in here, and I'll just try to double check in it. so that the part is holding itself in place. You can do the same thing if it's just an IC, but I would be even more careful then, because I mean, if I break one of the legs here, it's annoying and it's it's work for me to fix that, but it's at least not the leg of an IC. And now we just flip this over like this, and it's all holding itself pretty good in place. And I just have to put down a little bit of solder and melt them together and make sure it flows neatly in the leg and fills up that hole, just like this. And then I can just do that. And I'll be right back once I've sorted both of these little ICs in place.
1,000 years later.
There we have it. We are basically done with the circuit board. All we need to do is take these out and plop them in. And you can obviously look at the papers to make sure the right one is going in the right. But it should be that this one needs to go over here. I think, yes. It has the right. It has to have the right amount of money. Right amount of money. I can't speak. The right amount of legs. I give them a gentle push like this, so that they go from being straight and pointing out a little bit to being like a curved-in crawl thing. A little bit, just a little bit. I hope you can see what I'm doing. If you can't, I'm sorry, because this is small fiddly things. And then I just try to line them up and make sure everything fits, and then I just give it a gentle push into place. If it doesn't want to go in, then that's not good. So don't overdo it. Just line up the symbol on the board with the symbol on the part, a little notch, and it will all be good. Just press it into place. And if it doesn't go in immediately, don't force it. Just take a look, be careful, and make sure everything looks like it's lining up neatly. Here we go. Alright, so here we have the kit right now, and the next thing would be to start adding other parts. And we're going to do that, but you add the pots from the back. So one pot will go into those 3 holes there, like so, and one like so, and the next one like so. You have them. For example, you could obviously maybe... Actually, this one is probably supposed to go like that. I'm being crazy. I mean, if you put it like that, it most likely would still work, but it would be very tight and look a little bit wonky. So it's going to go in like that. And this is the reason why they have given us these little touchy things that you put on them. These little pot sleeves, because if you can... I'm not going to do this with all 3 on. I'm crazy. If you look at this, you can see here, it's insulating it and isolating it away from the soldering pots, the back of all these solder joints, which would shorten out on this. But we're not going to solder that in place just yet, because if we do that, we might have issues once we've drilled our enclosures. But what we can do is we can take this and we can work on that. So here we have our switch, and we can lay this on top of it, so, and get that on, like so, and we can put a dab of solder there. Then we can take our LED, which I think might be a red one. Yeah, this is a red LED, which isn't bad, but maybe I want to switch that out. So before we put the LED in, I'm going to take a quick thinker, and I'm going to look in my drawer of LEDs and see if I maybe want something else, because red is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a red LED. But it can be fun to experiment with something else and something different, and it doesn't matter what color you use. It's just a preference thing. So I'm gonna, most likely, just because I feel like every pedal out there has a red LED. Just gonna see maybe if I can find something else. So I'm just gonna solder these here quickly together, just a dab to get. And if you're worried that it doesn't work, you take a multimeter and you just check your continuity again. I know that in every video I make, I talk about continuity, Don't move away from me. But seriously, continuity is your best friend. And then you press it, and then you just check the other one. And then there. See? Works fine. It's amazing. And if you want to check that you didn't destroy the board, you can do the same thing here. You can just check the ins and the outs, for example. So there we go. It's all working the way it should. Now, I was going to show you, but I managed to just poke it around a little bit, and I didn't want to mess up the solder joint just to show you. But I'll show you anyway. Maybe that sentence doesn't make any sense. What I mean is I'll show you the tool, and not physically show you the work. If you mess up, you get a cold joint, the dual locking thing, or you accidentally bridge something with 2 solder joints or something and you need to remove the solder and start over, then you need a solder sucker. And this is the one I use. It's like a soldering iron, except if you look real close, I don't know if the I scared myself. It's spring loaded and I accidentally pressed the spring. I didn't know it was loaded. Oh my god. If you look at the tip, you can see that it's like a hollow tube. And what you do is you press it in to load it, and then when you press it, it will like create a vacuum and suck it out. So you heat it up and you suck it out. This one is 2-in-1, so this can both heat it up and suck it out. I don't know if it's the best thing you can get or if that's the best thing to do, but you can also get a not electronic thing that is just a suction thing, so that you have to hold your soldering iron and then your sucker at the same time and just heat up a bit to get it floating and then suck it out. It all depends on, the way you want to do it. I am going to continue now and move on to the next part, which means that I need to find a box to drill some holes. So we're going to take a quick break here again. Oh god! Please no! No! Look at all this snow. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe. Wow! Alright, so let's take a look and see what we have. Again, I have... Now, let's see. For example, I have this big box here, and the kit would fit here nicely. It's a nice box. I kind of like it. I've painted this one with hammer lacquer. Now, hammer lacquer is a type of lacquer you get in a spray can or in a little can. And you can paint your enclosures with it. It gets this like nice vintage hand painted look. It's an old thing, it's been around for a long time. And the reason why it's called hammer lacquer is because you can strike it with a hammer and it should be somewhat okay with that. Obviously, take that with a grain of salt because, obviously it depends on how hard you hit it. But if you buy something like an anvil or something like that, it will come painted with hammer lacquer because, it's a good protective thing. You can paint them with spray paints and you can clear coat them and do all that sort of things as well. I personally, in my own experience, have never found that to work perfectly. For most part, it looks nice the first couple of months, but then after stepping on it and playing it and using it on gigs, the paint starts peeling off. You can also do resin things, like do a thin layer on top to seal things in. But I'm thinking maybe we'll actually use this because it will definitely be big enough for the pedal, but it will also be big enough for possible maybes of adding things and modding this. I'm really into modding pedals at the moment. It's been sort of my new fun thing. I mean, it's not new for me, but it is my fun thing. So I think I'm gonna take this one. And we'll just we'll drill a couple of holes. We'll see if we can figure out where we want them. Well, I don't know. We'll see if I need a top mount or if I'll do them on the side. Yeah, give me just a second to draw some lines. And we'll see if we can come up with something.
1 hour later.
Okay, so one thing that I actually think is pretty cool is that on these instructions, this is not something that you'll find on every instructions, but these ones had it, and I think it's kind of nice, is that somewhere in here, first of all, you get the schematic. So if anyone wants to you can download it from their page, or you can steal it from me showing you it right there. You can, you can make it that way if you don't want to buy the kit. And this is just free to download. You don't have to log in or do anything. It's just there, which I think is really nice and cool. But they have a drill template for the controls. I don't know if I got this to be right, because I just printed this out and I didn't think about it, but it says here it has to be printed out at 100%. So we can measure that, actually, to see if I did that, because if I did that, then this is going to be so easy. I don't even have to think, I can just do this. So I'm going to just take this, I'm just going to hold this up to the center. You can see on the board, I hope you can see it when I hold it up, that there are circles with crosses in them, and in the middle of that is where the middle of the pot is going to be, or very close to where the pot is going to be. This is why I haven't soldered them in place. That is almost exact. So I can actually just take this and align it with my pedal enclosure and drill those. It will be roughly in the right place. So let's jump down to look at this. I hope you can see what I'm doing. But basically, obviously I could cut this out, but I'm going to see if I can maybe... I don't really know how I'm going to do this, but I'm thinking maybe it would be cooler to have the 3 of these controls in the middle. But I'm thinking you know, when we do our own pedals, when we do our own thing, we have an opportunity to make things look a little bit different, look a little bit strange or a little bit weird, which, you know, we don't have to make things look strange or weird. But if I take this paper and I hold it up to this enclosure and I sort of fold it around here a little bit, maybe I can align it at the edge here a little bit. I'm going to take this paper off and I'm actually going to cut this out. There we go. And if I want to, maybe I could put this sort of in the middle like this and solder that in place. And that could be kind of cool. And then maybe I could add, you know, maybe if I push this up a little bit like that, maybe, then I could add like 2 more controls here or something and get it all symmetrical. But I'm thinking, what if I move this over to the side, something like that maybe, you know? And I'm gonna use this all because it's kind of sharp, and I'm gonna press with that one, like so. And then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna see if I can find these marks that I just made. Or maybe not. I'm never gonna find those marks. I gave up immediately on that. I'm gonna take this one instead because I know it will work. I was hoping to use that one first and then follow up with this one. But this one didn't work. Okay, that was a lot of sound. My ear is ringing. That's never happened before. But now I can feel some marks here. Okay, that's good. Let's take some tape. Oh, I think I might have popped something or something. That is not good. Okay, we need to put in the switch down here. So I'm going to put a piece of tape like a bit over the edge, like so. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to measure this board because it sticks out a little bit, like so. And then I'm going to divide that. So 22 is 11, right? Yes. And I'll give myself a little bit extra, so 15 maybe. And then I'll give myself a line here. I make a mark there, and I hold my fingers up to the edge as a stop. And I create a line like so. And then, let's see. The middle of this would be half of 92, which is like 47 mils. Right, roughly, at least. Not really. There's the middle. Do I want the switch in the middle, or do I want something else? I think this is going to be too close to the edge. I don't like it. So I'm going to move it up a couple of mils. But I do have enough space. So something like that. And then I think that's good. I think in the middle here. I think that's going to be nice. I'm going to poke it with this. So many horrible sounds. And then we need a little space for the LED, right? So if we hold this up, eyeball it to the middle. It's I think I want the LED on this side, so I think I might put it in the switch backward then. Do I want to put the switch? I don't think I'd want to put the switch in backwards. That's annoying. But I do. Wait, I'm gonna take this measurement from the edge up to this mark, which is now, it's 20. I'm going to double that to 40 there, so somewhere there, and then mark that, go, something like that. And then I'm going to take this measurement here, which I think was like 47 or something, right? 46. And I'm going to divide that, so the half of that would be 23, right? I'm going to come in from the side here and I'm going to do a mark here. And I'm going to put the LED not through. Just, you can, if you want to, you can just take the switch like this. You can just take the legs and pop them through these holes, you know, like this. Hope you can see what I'm doing. Like so. But then the switch is very close. So if you want to, you can put wires and then put wires on this. But since I think I might switch color for something else that matches this a little bit better, I have pre-wired LEDs with just longer wires. So I think I'm going to go with that. So I have that marked there for the switch. There we go. Very good, very good. Okay, so we have the holes for the control and the hole for the switch and the LED. Looks a little bit wonky now, but don't forget, we have all this space up here, the other half of the pedal basically, because we're going to have one control there and then we can have 2 controls here for the trim pots, if we want to mess with that later. It's not going to be a part of this video, but fairly confident it's going to happen. So, we need a hole up here. I'm just going to take a piece of tape and put it down like so. I made it go all around because we need a little bit we need somewhere to drill the holes for the jacks anyways. I might as well take one piece of tape. And let's measure this here again. Eyeball this a little bit for now. Or actually, It was perfectly, on there. You don't have to do it like this, but you can use a straight edge like this and just mark it down like so that you know. And then let's see, what is half of this thickness here? Half of this thickness is 42, which is 21. It's there. And then we have the jack, which is actually I think 11 in thickness, right? Yeah, 11 and a half. So 12. Big hole, and half of 12 is 6. So if we come down here to, and you have to measure from, not from the bottom, but from the bottom because you have the closure as well. Then there somewhere, roughly. And we just pop this there. I'm gonna pop it a bit over there, just because I don't need it to be that far down, but I feel like that might be nice. All right, and now where do we want the jacks? I'm gonna take a quick break here and just think a little bit, because I might want them up here, I might want them up here, or maybe I want them in the middle. I know I don't want them down here, but if I leave most of this alone, then I can install an expression jack and and just really tweak this. The expression jack thing is not something that is in the instructions, but it could be cool to have that. So yeah. Okay, so here it is. I hit that way too hard, too close to my ear. Maybe the lesson here is not to listen to what I say, because I'm clearly stupid. I got a little making a decision anxious, and couldn't decide what I wanted. So I just went middle. But we have enough real estate in this to put it wherever we want, basically. So take off the tape, and we're gonna pre-drill all these holes with a tiny little drill. So let's do that, and I'm gonna try to pop my ears. All right, so here we have the enclosure. Here we have the drill. In it I have a 3.5 mil drill bit, and we're gonna drill out all these holes, and then we're gonna enlarge them. There we go, and before we do anything else, we need to take these screws out, because when we drill with our step bit, we might hit the back plate from the front. So we need to just take these 4 screws out. Alright, so here we have it. Let's drill it out to the right. Let's start off with the switch, which is this hole right there, and we just have to measure and see what we need. So we take our switch, take our calipers, and we can see that that's a 12. So we take our step bit and we start drilling this out. Just try to see if we can get to 12. 12 is all the way. There we go. Easy peasy. And I think that the DC jack, if I remember correctly, is also a 12 or 11 and a half, which is always fun. So yes, that's an 11 and a half. So let's drill that right there. You see how the drill is trying to pull it away? You can see how my hand is moving. So hold on to it really nicely as you're drilling, but also go slow. And when I say go slow, I don't mean go slow on the drill, I mean go slow with your pushing with the other hand. Alright, the next thing we should do is we should drill the LED holder, which is this thing. Let's measure the thread on this. That's a 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's drill this one to an 8. The next thing is the jacks on the sides. Measure over the threads. Now, you have 2 options here. You could either measure thread, which means measuring right here, or you can measure from the like bevel on the inside, which is what I think you should do, so that the jack actually sits in there, and that's a 10. Straight up 10. So let's make these 2 holes here 10 mil. Now we get to the pots, and we need to measure all 3 of them, because if they all have the same thickness, we can just drill the holes. But sometimes they don't have the same. I think that they have, but we're going to be extra careful. So we measure over the thread over this one, and that's a 5, 6, 7. This is a 7 as well. 5, 6, 7. Yes. And this one is this is also a 7, I think. Come on, move. This is a 5, 6, 7. Yes. Good. We know that all our parts are 7, so we can drill these all out the same. If it wasn't, we would have to check which control is what and what, you know, thickness is what, and make sure we didn't drill too big holes. There we go, real quick, that they go through. They do. It feels like this is all good. Okay, let's jump over to the other camera view and start installing these little things and make sure everything looks nice. So let's start adding things to the enclosure. We're gonna start off with the LED. It's fairly simple. You put this little washer bevel thing into it, and you put the actual washer on, and you take this thing here and you just sort of finger tight it down a bit so that it's not moving too much. Then you have a plastic thing that the LED is going to go over. I had to drill these out a bit to fit this in because this is an LED with wires, shrink tube, and a resistor in it. This is, you know, it's not technically exactly right, but I'm going to press this in and use this because that means that I can, you know, sort of, or not sort of, but I can have a different colored LED, but I can also have it in a place that is a little bit further away from the switch, because if I mount it directly without cables, then I have to do things a little bit different. There is a resistor in this, so I can test to see that I didn't break the LED by fiddling around, by just holding it to a 9-volt battery. But you can't do that if it's just an LED without a resistor. It seems like I might have broken it, because I felt like I felt something popping. Something did break. So I'm going to switch it out for a new one. You know, these sort of things are very fiddly, so it's always a hassle trying to get things to fit in nicely and neatly. There we go. It's lighting up. Battery died, so I had to go get a new one, but you didn't miss anything, just my very savvy commentary, you know, on the political state of the world. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, let's unscrew this and add this to the board. There are, you know, a bunch of different ways you can do this, you know, no matter how you feel about it. You know, I'm gonna just pop this in here with this ring on so that it bites into that, and then put this on here and this on here. And you can adjust the inner locking nut. You have one on the inside and one on the outside, and you can set the depth on the one on the inside for whichever, you know, sort of a height thing you want. Anyway, there it is. And now, just to get them out of the way, I'll pull these on the back because I know they're never going to be used. And I pull them over here, and I'll cut them off here, and then I'll cut these back just a tiny bit. Now, when you look at your LED that you get in kit, because maybe you want to use it, you'll have two legs, and the positive leg will be this longer one, and the negative will be this shorter one. So when you look at my kit right here and how I'm doing it, just imagine that the black one is the negative, because that's what it is, and that the positive one is this green, in this case, wire, because that's what it is. That's the plus and the minus. So I'm bringing my solder in. I'm pushing. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit of solder on these cables because they are flaring out a little bit. So I'm going to pre-tin them a little bit, or just tin them. As some of you say, I think it depends on where you are. Some people say pre-tin, some people say tin. It says LED there, so I'm going to try it in there. Like so. I don't know if you can see that it's in that hole there, but the plus sign is on the other leg, which means that this is the minus leg, because there's only two, you know, the plus and the minus. So you don't necessarily have to mark out both. But there it is. Give it a second or two to cool down, and then you just tug it a little bit, and you can tell that it's in place. Unless it's obviously falling out immediately, then it's not in place because you just pulled it out. So wire 2, pull it over here, and we push it through here as well. Something like that. I think we got it. It can be a little bit hard for you guys to see it, and I'm sorry about that, but it is, you know, it is very small parts. It seems like it's nicely there. Let's take our pots. And now we need our instructions, which I cut up, so we will see if we still have paper where the values are written. So yeah, here we have our pots. And the frequency is a 25K, volume is 100K, blend is 50K. So we have to take our board and look at it like this and see, okay, it's gonna sit like this, right? So if we go with, here it says level instead of volume, but I think we can understand what that means, right? So let's start with frequency, because that's the highest up. That's the 20K. I mean 25, which is this one. Now, I didn't drill a little tiny hole for this leg here because I forgot to do so. But I don't feel like pulling out my drill for that, so I'm just gonna take and break that off like so. You could argue that I shouldn't have done that, but I did it, and it's too late. So frequency is that one right there, right? So frequency 25K, yes, goes in here, like so. and put the washer on. And I did tighten this down so that it is actually tightened down, but this I'm gonna finger tighten and just leave a little sloppy. So we have like, you know, it's kind of wiggling around there. And then the next one is the level, which is the volume, which is the 100K, which is this one. Found it immediately. I never do, but I did this time. Same again, just gonna break that leg there off and just put this in here as well. Right, because that's the opposite side. Yes. Just screw that down a little bit. Now this is the blend, and the blend is a 50K, so unless I've done a mistake, that should say 50K on this, and it does say 50K. So let's snip that off, and we know we're golden. Let's see here. Those are sitting like that. And so this one has to sit like that as well, right? Yeah, I think it's gonna work. Hold on to it. Washer over and put this on. And the reason why I didn't solder this down immediately is because if I haven't perfectly drilled this, which I, you know, to be perfectly honest, don't think I have, then I might not be able to fit it into the holes. So having a little bit of wiggle room, soldering these, you know, in place will help me. So there the pots are, and I can sort of somewhat loosely, so you can move them a little bit. Not so much so that they are just flopping around, but so much that you can sort of move them. You see how I'm able to like fairly easy move. So here we have the board, and now I can sort of just wiggle this in place. Try to push all of them into place and make it, you know, fit and look nice. Like so. And that looks like it's gonna work. I don't need to overdo this more than that. It's just sort of lying in place. And now I can just take my soldering iron, and I can start just sort of try to press down on the board a little bit as you solder every leg into place. So I'm starting with one leg on this potentiometer right there. It's in place. And then I'm gonna move over here to this one. Just give myself a little bit of a wick that sticks out. Just solder one of the legs in place, like so. And here, over here, it's gonna be super fiddly. And especially it's going to be fiddly for you guys to see what I'm doing, but I'm trying to just add a bit of solder and solder that into place, getting it to stick down there. And you don't have to like get a super, I mean, you need to get a clean connection, but you don't need to get like a, this is covering the entire thing. As long as it is soldered there and it is actually getting a connection, that's good enough. So just keep that in mind if you're worried. And what I mean is you don't need to get it all around or the leg of the pot. You can get it on just one side. As long as it's, you know, not a cold joint and it's not, you know, blobbing up on the side or something, it's gonna work. I had to take this hole out after, because I drilled this a little bit too close to home. As you can see, it still fits, it's all gonna work, there's no real issues, but I technically probably maybe should have thought about what I was doing a little bit harder, maybe. Same thing here, you see, just give myself a little bit more wiggle room. So if you do this, maybe don't put it as close up to the edge as I did. You can see even here, in this corner here, that I am pretty close. It's fine for me. I got the look that I wanted, but technically, maybe, most definitely, I should have just been a bit more thoughtful. Let's say that. Let's see if I can screw this in. Come on. This one needs to go in here, and I am not gonna add a battery clip. I don't even think I got one in the kit, so I don't need to like worry about it. So I'm gonna put this like this, I think, just for my own convenience sake, and have the two controls that I need, the two contacts points. So this is the ground contact point that I need, and this is the last leg sticking up for the positive. And now all we need to do is like try to figure out how we're gonna wire this up, and it's gonna be fairly easy. If we flip this over like this and we take something like a plug, this is something that I recommend everyone does, because when you're new to building pedals, it can be a little bit confusing what is, you know, what is left side, what is right side. You're flipping things around, you get confused. This is where your guitar comes in. That's the input, or the sound leaves the pedal. And so this is your output, right? So far so good. So I'm just gonna plug this one in as my guitar so that I know that this is the input. So if I put that there, then I know. And now I can take these wires, they're very convenient. Let's say that input, which means guitar in this case, is green, and we'll keep it concise. So we have two connections here. Let's put a little dab of solder on them. I've already done it on the other one, but I'll show you that that's what you need to do. So here we put some here. I'll let a bit of solder hold it there for a second so that you really get a nice flow. And we'll do one here as well, because we might want to connect the ground. Go, and we'll do the same here as well. And obviously the other jack as well, but as I just told you, I've already done that one. There we go. Clean my tip. Okay, start with the input. The guitar comes in, and I have a wire here. I twist this little extra piece of the wire off. I twist it off, and then I twist the wire so it becomes like a spiral. I pre-tin it. I put a little bit of solder on my tip, and I hold it up to this connection here, which is the positive, and I melt the two together. And there we have that, and then I can take this wire. This is the in, so it goes to the in over here, and we can cut these wires and make them look really neat, but I feel like this is, you know, this is about the appropriate length, so I'm gonna just take a look. This goes here, it goes there, there's the in. Now, TS, tip and sleeve, which is, you know, another way of saying, you know, signal and, you know, lead signal or positive or ground or negative. So yeah, we're just gonna pre-tin this wire a little bit, just a little bit, so we have something to solder to. So tip, the tip right here, that's the tip, which is this green wire. So that one needs to go into the T. I'm gonna take and see if I can maybe get it in from the underside. If I can't, it's okay, and I can solder it in through the top as well, but this looks neater and better. Let's just do the exact same thing I just did, but let's use a ground wire, because it does say sleeve, and most likely you will only need to put on one of the ground wires from the jacks, because they are already grounded through being on the enclosure, which is something you have to keep in mind if you're doing something that is not a metal enclosure of some sort. I'm gonna cut this down a little bit, just because I feel like it's gonna look a little bit neater if it's just a tiny bit shorter. You don't have to, just because I did it. Poke this through, like so. Dab of solder to solder them in place, like so. That looks nice. Okay, so that's in. Then we have an in here, and let's keep this ground here consistent. So let's get another green wire, and again let's pre-tin this wire. So the in is in, and here is it in again. So let's see if we can poke it through. We can we solder it in place? Yes, we can. The next one is a ground, so let's add a ground immediately. G is just ground. So, and just a quick reminder, if this seems very fiddly, then please remember that it's not going to be as fiddly for you as it is for me, because you won't be filming. There we have those two wires right now. We'll tuck them down like that for now. These are labeled 2 PCB, so they're going to go over there. We need to add another ground wire, and we need to add a positive DC wire. So let's get those out of the way. I think these are going to be long enough. They might be just not long enough. We'll put them in place, and if I have to, I'll replace them with new wires that are a little bit longer, because I'm a little suspicious. This is the big ground leg right here. We'll add a little bit of solder so that that one gets tucked in there. And then we'll use red for our power positive. We have the positive of our pedal, but we also have the power battery, or the power supply, the DC in. There we have those two. They are going to go over here to that DC on the switch. So we have to twist these off and put a dab of solder on these as well, just to make sure that when we go to put them into the hole, they are being connected. And then let's do the same thing that we've done so far, and that is see if we can feed these in to these. So the red one is the plus power. Can we get it through? Yes, we can. And let's see if we can get this one in. Something like that. These wires are not taut, but they are just like a hair too short. Like, I just feel like I would like to tuck them down and have them lying a little bit more neatly, but they're kind of, you know, they're lying up like that. I hope you can see what I mean. If they were just like a centimeter longer, that would be good. So I'm gonna leave them in for now, because we don't know what we're doing. And maybe when we come back and mod this, I'll just switch those out. Anyway, let's get back to it. We need a wire for the O and the 9 volt. And we can make that, the 9 volt can be a red wire, because that makes sense. And then the O can be a yellow wire, so that we are not confused. We have the in signal here, so it's 4 wire. We have the ground wire here. We have the 9 volt here, and we have the out here, or O, as I accidentally said, which is yellow, because we don't want to confuse ourselves. The signal goes into the pedal, and it's all green and nice, and then it leaves the pedal, and it's yellow, because it got sick from all the ring modulation happening to it. But yeah, what we need to do is we need to put these wires down first towards the body, and then up towards the pedal. Give ourselves a little wiggle room, and then just cut them off, because we don't need these to be this long. So I'm going to strip these back and pre-tin them. And I'll be back once I sorted them in there.
An eternity later.
And there we go. And now we need 2 more wires. We need a black one and we need a yellow one because we are turning this output into a yellow wire. So if we look over here, we have the tip and the sleeve. See if I can do this. Just take this wire and push it through. That's the sleeve. I want the tip. Just the tip. Are you guys laughing at my jokes? Let me know, because I'm trying to be funny. It's mostly because it's kind of awkward sitting here talking to yourself. And if I say a bunch of weird things, then maybe someone will comment, and then it doesn't feel like I'm talking to myself anymore. Let's see what happens. Hopefully someone will write me a nice comment, but at this point, from not getting any comments for so long, I might want even a naughty comment. Not a bad comment or a rude comment, I want a naughty one. Something about the tip. So I made a little hook, and now I'm trying to hook it through here. And just so you know, you don't have to do it like this. You can lay them down like I did over there. I just kind of want them like this, but I don't want to have to take the entire thing apart just to do it right. That would mean that I have to unscrew things, and I don't want to have to like get my tools out to do the job. If you want to know, yes, that is like the definition of laziness. Have it. S is for sleeve. Could also just be a G. It can say in and out, and then in and out, you know, and then it can be just, you know, it can just be, you know, an in and an O or something and a G. But anyway, let's move these over here. Okay, let's see. This is the ground. So let's flip these around like so. Put that one over there for now, and put this one over here. I'm gonna put this down the other cables so that they are all lying neatly. I'm just gonna solder it in place. I don't think I need to cut this one down. Pull that off, and I'll twist this around, and a little bit of solder, just so that it, you know, flows together neatly. And this is the tip connection here, just like I said in the beginning of the video. I hope you haven't forgotten that I explained everything in the beginning. The beginning of the video might be actually everything you need. You might not actually need to see me build this pedal. But anyway,
I regret nothing. The end.
There, that is, and I'll tuck it down a little bit like this so that it feels like it's lying neatly together with all the other cables, and hopefully it will. Okay, and then we have the ground, which, I mean, you could argue we don't actually even need to put this in, but I'm gonna do it, and I'm just not in the mood right now to cut this down to size and make it short, so I'm gonna just solder this in place. It's gonna be a little bit fiddly to get in there, but I will manage, like so. That looks nice, I think. It's a pretty good looking pedal. And now I'm gonna plug that. First off, just to like show you, like that's the way it is in the pedal. You know, the guitar comes in here. Flip this over, and you can see. Yeah. Okay. Good. And everything is in, and everything's good. Let's take the back plate. It looks like this. Put it on, and we'll put the screws in real quick. Just tighten them down a little bit like this. I'm just gonna feel everything a little first. I think everything is, it's pretty good. Take the next screw as well. The next thing we need to do is we have to put these little feet on, because you gotta do that. You don't have to. I like to put them on the inside of the screw, like on the leaning in. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Like so. And so. Like that. Now, we're going to talk about some completely different things. Wait, oh my god, I forgot. We need knobs. Give me a second. Do I even have any knobs? I have so many of these knobs that it would be cool if I could use them, because I have so many of them. And I really like them. They look cool, I think. But the question is, would they fit? Because I feel like the controls are very close to each other. Yeah, that's not going to work, right? Why did they make the control? Okay, I'm gonna have to try and see if I have any knobs. What if I don't have knobs? What do I do then? I'll be right back. Okay, I thought I had more knobs, but I don't have any knobs for these rounded shafts, because you need to have the ones with a little screw. So I'm gonna put these Telecaster knobs on, if I can get them out of their very tiny little bags. Oh no, wait. What? Oh my god, look at these. They have the teeth on the inside and no hole for the screw. So it's just a fake screw thing. Oh my god, you can't even move the screw. Damn it, I might have to, I'm gonna look around for one more time, but we might not actually have any controls for this one.
1 hour later.
So I looked around for longer than I care to admit, and I only found 2 that have the little screws so that I can mount them to this. So it's gonna have to just be nothing for now, but this is not really a demo of this kit. If you're interested, you'll have your own thingamajig thing going. I am gonna just mess around with this a little bit, and then we'll jump into the end of this video, and you'll get to hear it. There are 2 trim pots on the back, so I'm gonna have to just fiddle with them a little bit. But yeah. Anyway, we have a couple of things we have to discuss, so let's do that first. Okay, so the pedal is basically done. I have it right here, but there are a couple of things that I didn't do in this video because I kind of didn't have time for it, so I just want to mention them so that you can do this. And the thing is, you shouldn't really wire in the switch and things like that before you've tried the circuit. So you should technically wire the 2 jacks directly to the board just to check that there's nothing wrong with the circuit itself, you know, that you haven't made any mistakes, so that you know that before. Because otherwise, if you've done something wrong with the switch, you'll know that you've done something wrong with the switch. It's just a good practice thing to do. I have a video, I'll try to remember to link it below, of me building this thing, so that I don't have to do that. I can just plug it into that and then have a already wired up bypass switch for me to use so that I can check things. I also have a easier version of this for just trying. This one is for trying circuits, A and Bing things, and building a circuit and true bypass, experimenting and testing. So it's a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. You can just take the ground and the lead from the in and the out and solder directly to the board. You don't need the switch in between. The switch is just for bypass. But anyway, you should try that before you go to put it in a box and everything that I did. Yes, another thing that I didn't really do is I didn't really measure and make sure that everything could fit perfectly before I drilled the holes. Again, I'm a little bit in a hurry because I have things that I have to do, but you shouldn't be in a hurry when you do something like this. So as you could see on the inside, I was a little bit too close to the edge. I should have come in just 2 mils or something like that. Further, it's fine. It's going to work. All of it's going to be good. Make sure before you drill holes that you have space and room in there. Okay? Let's plug this in and see what it sounds like. Alright guys, so here is the pedal now. This is the guitar clean. And if it's a little bit out of tune, it's like really cold in here. The strings are you know, they're not cooperating completely. So here is the guitar then. Anyway, that's the way it sounds. And then, now, there is actually a lot of, I think that I'm going to make one of them, the little trim pots on the inside, into an expression jack. I might make it into a control and an expression jack, but I think I'm going to make it into expression jack because it is interesting, but we'll talk more about that later. Anyway, if I press this button, we go from this, the true bypass signal, into the fuzz thing. Ring mod. That's what we're building. And let's just fiddle with the controls a little bit. I'm not going to fiddle with the volume control because we don't need it to be louder than this, I think, right now. But right now it's at roughly 10 o'clock or something. So let's just see what happens if we fiddle with the other 2. it. I hope you liked this. I hope this taught you something or was something to you.
No.
The kit will be in the description below. I mean, I've only played it for 30 seconds or however long that bit was, but it's fun. It's gonna be fun to tweak it. I'm gonna have to sit and nerd in on those trim pots to really figure out what I want with those or don't want with them. And I think I'm gonna check out that mod that was in the description of the papers as well. So yeah, we might come back to this. Let me know if you want me to in the comments below, especially if you like have this kit and you didn't see the mod things in the description, the papers that came with the kit. I don't know words any longer. Anyway, I need to warm up because my hands are so cold that it hurts to play guitar. So I'm gonna go. If you're new here, don't forget to press the like and the subscribe. I have over 900 videos. Not everything is building pedals, but some are building guitars and some are experiments and things like that. So if you're new here and you're new to soldering and you're new to building things and you want to continue doing that, then check that out. I also every year start out with a video on something super easy that I think can be someone's first thing that they build. So if you feel like a kit is too dangerous or too hard or for you to do, and that the components are too small, you don't want to work on a circuit board with transistors and resistors and diodes and things like that, you want to just have wires going from jacks and things like that, then I have a bunch of videos on that. My first year video of the first year, first video of the year is always something super easy beginner thing. So yeah, I think that you can start with a kit. Maybe, you know, a simple thing like a fuzz face or something like that is best, but this, for example, it worked fine. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it. You're gonna have so much fun. So just, you know, jump into it. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Stay awesome and cool is what I'm trying to say, and go and build a pedal kit. It's easy, it's fun, and you'll end up with something cool, and you can customize it. It's much easier to mod and work on a pedal kit than it is to work on an already like store-bought and try to change those things. You can do that too. I'll have a little bit of videos on that, but there are more that are gonna come later as it gets a little bit warmer and easier to be in here. I'm gonna make more videos, so stay tuned for those, and just go build something and have fun. And yeah, now I've rambled on long enough. So I'm gonna go. Bye!
Mommy! Why did you say that name?